There have been polls taken since the election in 2020 where I think one of the polls said that 10% of the people who voted for Joe Biden would not have voted for Joe Biden if they would have known the Hunter Biden story. And that, many have suggested on the political right and elsewhere, is one of the reasons why the mainstream media and social media giants, for the most part, had a complete blockade of information. We're not going to talk about Hunter Biden because it simply is Russian disinformation.
Yeah, remember if you tried to tweet it out, if you tried to tweet the Post story out?
They'd shut you down. You're talking about the New York Post. They were one of the first outfits to get it, along with the Daily Mail, Fox News. We all reported it. Well, yesterday, late in the afternoon, there was an alert that the Washington Post did an investigation. 9 months ago, they got a hold of a copy of the laptop hard drive. And the headline was, "Inside Hunter Biden's multi-million-dollar deals with the Chinese energy company." As it turns out, the Washington Post hired a couple of people who are really good at this kind of thing, and they realized that these email on the hard drive were authentic. And so some of them were about Hunter's deal with CEFC, which is a Chinese energy company that paid him $5 million, and others verified the email with Burisma, where he was paid $1 million.
$1 million each year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they hired these two guys, Matt Green, Johns Hopkins University security researcher, and Jake Williams, former NSA operative and forensics expert, and both concluded that the emails have cryptographic signatures that are so hard to fake, even for the best computer hackers, they say. They got the hard drive in June. They spent months reviewing the data, and they made 2 copies of the hard drive. And now they are saying these emails are authentic. And remember, was it last week or the week before? It was New York Times that finally admitted these emails are authentic. And you've always said, why are they now saying this? Why are they now looking into this?
Well, he's either going to be indicted or
it's a big story.
It's a gigantic story.
Can't not cover it.
Hunter's either going to be indicted, and they need to make their history right with the story and say, well, you know, we came out eventually and said that, or maybe it's time to squeeze Joe Biden out, and this would help disqualify him.
So the Washington Post goes out of their way to say how the Biden family has profited off Joe's relationships, but the Post did not find evidence that Joe Biden personally benefited from or knew any details. And I'm watching John Harwood on CNN breathlessly trying to say this has nothing to do with the president, kind of indicating that Hunter's been a problem his whole life and the poor president's had to deal with it. One has nothing to do with the other. There is proof, and there's a phone call away from Tony Bobulinski to say how the president met twice with Joe Biden. He references the big guy in emails. People have said it's the big guy in emails. He is referenced in talking to his daughter about the big guy in emails being his father, that he's had to do all this work and supply money to his father and kind of exasperated because of it. All you have to do is go to C-SPAN. There's Tony Bobulinski. You don't have to go to Fox because we probably don't want to go to Fox and use what we carried it live to. Go to C-SPAN. They carried Tony Bobulinski talking about the links, the times he met, and all the information that he had that he would eventually turn over to Ron Johnson's committee in the Senate that talked about the links with Joe Biden. They met at the Beverly Hilton Hotel behind a pole because not to be seen, and they talked generally about these projects, saying, please take care of my son, look out for me. That was basically their job screening for Tony Bobulinski because they didn't have a lot of his knowledge as a Penn State guy with great international business. He didn't need the money. He thought he would take on the challenge when he was recruited to do it.
The question was there quid pro quo? I mean, even when Bill Clinton was getting impeached, was there quid pro quo? It was perceived that he got Monica Lewinsky the job at the Pentagon.
No, perceived that if you're, the vice president's son, you do this, you're an energy company linked with these.
For influence.
So if Bill Clinton gets impeached for the influence, quid pro quo, what he did for Monica in exchange for that, then is that happening in this case too? We will pay you large amounts of money if we have influence with your dad, who was the vice president at the time.
Yeah, it's hard to put that in the contract, but that is kind of what is felt to have been the deal. Miranda Devine, who wrote Laptop from Hell, which suddenly the Washington Post said, okay, it was actually from hell. She talked to Brian about a half an hour ago.
If you're going to actually finally be late with the story, 18 months late, and you've had the laptop in your possession since June of 2021, it really behooves you to give your readers the entire truth. And I feel as if the Washington Post spent 7,000 words yesterday in their paper on 2 stories, which really left out some crucial details. These are the same newspapers that won Pulitzers for their coverage of the Russia collusion hoax with the most flimsy evidence. Here you have actual evidence, documents that you can corroborate with other people who were on emails. There, every which way, these things can be corroborated, as we did before we published. We did our due diligence, but they just can't do basic journalism.
And remember, she's talking about we, meaning the New York Post. In the New York Post story regarding this today, they say, following the expose, the Washington Post fact-checker feature said that the paper has not been able to verify or authenticate these emails, and said there were fears that emails could have been part of a broader disinformation campaign by Russia. We heard that from a lot of people, but the disinformation campaign was actually from Democrats and from a lot of members of the mainstream media. But now it's being revealed.
Matt Gaetz came out yesterday or the day before and said all 51 of those intelligence experts, including 5 directors of the CIA, should have their top secret clearance revoked because they put their credibility in the line, saying this is typical Russian disinformation, the patterns, a little bit of a wiggle room there. The other thing to keep in mind, Ron Johnson was moving fast on this investigation, but you know who stopped him? 2 Republicans from moving forward, Mitt Romney and Rob Portman. So that's inexcusable, too. And then, of course, they lose control of the Senate because of the Georgia situation, and the investigation stops on a dime.
22,000 emails from 2009 to 2019 that are on that laptop that was left at the repair shop in Delaware.
They're real. I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.